Here at Photorec.tv, we are working on our full review of the Sony a7 III, but I wanted to take a moment to answer a question I've heard often in the last couple of days. Why would anyone pay $1,200 more for the Sony a7R III when the new a7 III is better? Let's discuss. I've owned the Sony a7R III from the moment it was released, and it's come along with me on some fantastic trips: Alaska, Yellowstone, Yosemite, Vietnam. And over the last couple of days, I've spent time with Sony shooting with the a7 III, and I think that makes me pretty qualified to help you answer the question of why you may or may not want to spend an additional $1,200 for the Sony a7R III. Let's start with what the a7R III offers over the a7 III. A better EVF. When you're looking through the viewfinder of the a7R III, it does not feel like a screen. It's beautiful, it's crisp, and it's clear. And when you put your eye up to the a7 III, you can just start to see the pixels. I mean, honestly, I didn't notice this difference until I saw the specs listed and held both up to my eye, one after the other. It's not a difference that I feel will impact your photography. The LCD is also slightly lower resolution. The a7R III offers pixel shift. I mean, that's that feature where 4 photos are taken, combined in the software together for noticeably increased detail. I'm blown away by how much more detail is captured when you take the time to pixel shift. But despite that, I've actually only used it a few times. Now, part of that is the way I shoot. I lump myself more into a travel photographer than a landscape photographer. I'm typically on the move. I'm often not on a tripod, which is required for this mode. But photographers looking to get as much detail as possible from their shot, the pixel shift provides fantastic opportunity and is the same as carrying around heavy, big, medium format gear. And of course, the a7R III offers more megapixels, 42. The a7 III, 24. It sounds like a significant difference, maybe enough so that I could say the a7R III offers 42 megapixels, the a7 III just 24. I mean, here's an actual shot. Here they both are at 100% view, and I've sent both off to be printed at 16 by 20. Now, they won't be back before I leave for my next trip, but I'm going to come back to this discussion at some point in the future. And I'm going to touch back on this megapixel discussion just in a few minutes in this video. There are a few other differences. The a7R III has more weather sealing, though until we get a teardown, we won't know the real differences. You get the use of metal screws on the R3. The a7 III uses plastic in some cases, and the R3 shutter is rated for a slightly longer lifespan. Now, these aren't factors that would sway my decision one way or the other, and maybe we should put the EVF and LCD in this section down here as well. But now let's look at what the a7 III offers over the more expensive R3. We've got a better AF system. We're borrowing from the A9. We've got 693 points, which gives us a greater edge-to-edge coverage, and because of this greater coverage and the more points within it, the IAF system is even more accurate and more responsive. I mean, honestly, I didn't see a huge or feel a huge difference. It does feel very responsive and accurate, but so does, in my opinion, the R3. You also have better battery life in the a7 III. This is the official SIPA rating of the new camera is 710 shots, and that's a very clinical lab test. I know that on a full day of shooting, I was able to capture just under 4,000 photos on one battery. The a7R III is rated at just 610 shots, but I've had similar experience and rarely needed more than one battery to get through a day of shooting photos and some videos, and that includes sub-freezing temperatures on the Alaska and the Yellowstone trip. And we have better low-light performance on the a7 III. The photo side of things are actually quite similar. It's a little bit better, but of course you can downsize the R3 pictures and then they look fine. But in the video side of things, it's noticeably better at those higher ISOs. So much so that videographers who don't care about the improvements that the a7S III is going to bring, we don't know yet exactly, but of course it's going to be better, take notice. I mean, at this price point, the a7 III is offering an extremely impressive video package for this price. Let's recap the differences that matter. The a7R III, megapixels. The a7 III, improved AF, better battery video quality at the higher ISOs, and of course saves you $1,200. Here's what I say. I feel that if you're watching this video, you might be on the fence. And if you're on the fence, you don't need 42 megapixels. 24 is more than enough, and those savings can be put towards a nice lens that is going to greatly improve your photography more than a few megapixels, or a lot if you consider it a lot, or a trip that's going to take you someplace awesome where you can make beautiful 24 megapixel photos. There are fewer of you that need 42 megapixels, but if you do, you should know it. And I'll just mention, if you're a Lightroom user, Lightroom is going to certainly feel more responsive when browsing through 24 megapixel files versus 42, not to mention storage spaces. And briefly, I've heard some of you say, why buy the A9? Well, in my opinion, that is a very different beast. It offers 20 frames per second silently without worrying about distortion due to rolling shutter. If you need that, you should know it as well. I also know some of you wonder about the a7R2 versus the a7III. Since they're similar in price and you've got an earlier Sony, I think this is easy. I mean, the improvements in the newer A7 series, the battery life, the ergonomics, I mean, they all combine to make a much more user-friendly and capable camera. It can handle a great number of photography tasks, and for that reason, I think most people would be better off going a7 II to a7 III, even though you don't get an increase in megapixels. If this video helped you or made you angry, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to be notified of future videos, and you can hit that little bell icon too. Below this video, I've got a recommended list of lenses and gear for whichever Sony you pick up, and of course, I want to know your comments and your opinions. Leave those right down below. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.